There's a bit of breaking news. The UK economy grew by 0.7% between January and March. Stronger growth than the 0.6% previously estimated. We are 6 days away, ladies and gentlemen, from a brand new government. From Thursday of next week, you'll be voting. By Friday, there will be a new Prime Minister sitting in Downing Street. And will it be Keir Starmer? Will it be Rishi Sunak? I mean, they've basically both been saying it's going to be one or the other. And at the moment, with 6 days to go, it doesn't look great for Rishi Sunak, I'm afraid to say. But let's talk now to Zoe Grunewald, who's here, political commentator, of course, about a great many things. Zoe, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Nice to see you. 6 days to go. I don't know whether I'm thrilled, ready, excited, you know, disappointed. I'm not quite sure, really. It's been a kind of weird old campaign, hasn't it?
Absolutely. I personally am extremely tired and ready for it all to be over. I've got a holiday at the end of July and I'm just counting down the days. And I think the point is, it's not just been quite a long election campaign. We were in campaign mode for weeks before that. Really, we have been in full campaign mode, I would say, since the start of the year. So it does feel very tiring and it does feel very long. Yeah,
and it must be for the politicians, not that I'm trying to elicit any kind of sympathy for them. For them, I know lots of them appear on TV shows and say how much they love campaigning. I mean, but it must be a pretty soulless task if you're a Tory MP going out there hoping to get re-elected, but sometimes even betting on yourself that you're not going to be.
I think it's really tough, and I think it's especially tough for the volunteers who are helping campaign in those Tory areas, who have found out that the MP or the candidate has put a bet on themselves to lose, like in the case of Philip Davies. I mean, I don't know how you would go out and defend the fact that that candidate put an 8,000 bet on themselves to lose the seat. That makes it very difficult. But I think, I think the one thing is, we're a week away, the sun is out. I'm sure people in Labour areas are feeling really good, really confident. But I think you're right, for the Tory teams, it's getting incredibly difficult to kind of hold the line that there's a chance of winning.
Yeah, and also, of course, you say the sun's out, we've got the football on as well. A lot of people said, is he mad having a campaign and an election during the Euros? I mean, if England win on Sunday against Slovakia, then the next game they have will be after the election. So there might even be some kind of feel-good factor from the football, but I don't really know, because even the football team has been pretty disappointing, despite the fact that they've won and they've gone through. But is there any kind of chance that that is of any use at all to Rishi Sunak if there's a sort of feel-good England factor?
I don't know. It's a really difficult one, and I think on some level, the public mood that we see around football is really illustrative of the public mood generally. So when you see football fans getting particularly grumpy, particularly cross when England perform badly, I think that's usually a reflection of how they feel about their set of circumstances anyway. I think if we do see a win on Saturday, people will be buoyed on. They'll feel more kind of, more happy with the state of things, more part of their communities. But I don't know if that means they would go out and vote Conservative. I should actually think probably not. I think no matter what happens now, a lot of people are just set on getting the Tories out of office.
Right. I mean, it's really a matter now of sort of how big the majority is going to be. And I mean, the Mail today has got a piece saying there's still 4 million voters who don't really know which way they're going to vote. So this is quite an unusual election, I guess, for that reason alone.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been out in some constituencies talking to voters, and overwhelmingly the big thing is voters say they either don't know who to vote for or they don't want to vote for anyone because they don't trust politicians, they don't like either of the two parties. I would say overwhelmingly, though, there's far more people who are prepared to say they would vote Labour than people I've spoken to who say they would vote Conservative. For those who were former Conservative voters, say in 2019, they're either thinking of not voting at all, voting Labour or voting Reform. So you do see that those voters are being taken away from the Tories. But there is still, I would say, for people who are still strong Labour voters, there's still that support there. So the question is, how many of those undecided 2019 voters will filter over to Labour, and how many will actually do what they say they are, which is going to vote for Reform? Or if they're at the ballot box, will they actually say, do you know what, I'm not going to vote for Reform because I still think voting Tory is the best chance of making sure there is a strong opposition if Keir Starmer comes into number 10.
Yeah, and looking at Rishi Sunak's comments this morning about Nigel Farage being a sort of Putin appeaser, they obviously still think that, trying to convince people who might be going to Reform to come back to the Tories is the way forward.
Yeah, and I think this was a strange comment from Nigel Farage for a number of reasons, but not least the fact that public support for Ukraine in this country is actually very, very high. If we look back to Boris Johnson and his time as Prime Minister, when he involved himself in the conflict, when he started giving support to Ukraine, we saw his approval ratings really shoot up. People feel very, very strongly against Russia, and they feel very strongly in support of Ukraine. So this actually has had a small dent, I would say, in Nigel Farage's approval ratings. I think for some voters, they found that quite hard to defend. Whether it will all kind of level out, a lot can happen in a week. With election campaigns, there are a number of factors. The foreign policy very rarely is the number one factor that people take to the ballot box. So I think it might have a small impact on Nigel Farage and Reform's campaign, but I don't know if it necessarily will prevent them from getting any votes at all. I don't think it's quite that strong.
Right.
But I think absolutely the Tories are seeing this as a way of scaring off those undecided Conservative voters who are toying with voting for reform, but care a lot about supporting Ukraine and don't like Putin.
No, sure. So good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. We've got to run because we've got so much going on today. Zoe Grunewald there giving us her view of the few days remaining. Just 6 days to go until we get to the next stage of the next government that we're going to have. Are you prepared? Are you ready?